Hello, everybody, and welcome to Documentation Not Included. It's Thursday, 7 p.m. BST. We're live on twitch.tv/DNI stream. It's time for our next show and our developer job series, episode version 2.12, to go back to what Chris was saying, although I would call it 2.12, team culture. I'm Josey Howarth, and as always, I am joined by the Rolex to my Swatch watch, Chris Seabach.
You're so kind, although I'm not sure. I don't wear. Do anybody wear watches anymore apart from salespeople? Okay,
My husband
that's not a
does.
watch.
It's a Fitbit.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It tells the time.
Doesn't apply. Anyway, yes. So hello, Josey, and a big hello to everybody in Twitch chat. Please do get involved in the show if you have anything to say, anything interesting, anything relevant, and we may read it out. First, let me introduce our guest, Sam. She has been on the show before. And for the benefit of our new listeners, or any listeners that have seen you before and have forgotten what you do, then please do let us know.
Hi, I'm Sam Strauss. Last time I was on, I was team lead at Real VNC in the engineering department. It's about a year, I think, something like that. And now I can say I'm engineering manager, which is very, very exciting. So my job now is to look after teams. More than one, which is very exciting. I'm on like week 9 or week 10 of my new job. I am still finding out exactly what that means.
That'll never stop.
No, it's that thing where you suddenly realize that you're now an adult and you suddenly feel like you need a more grown up. I'm still in that stage. What is this?
That happens to me every couple of years. I get a more senior job or I do a more senior contract, and I'm like, what? How? What? I thought I knew what I was talking about a year ago, and now I know more. Than you never get over it.
No, you don't. And yes, as always, before we get going, we're going to have our little icebreaker questions, a chance to get to know us and our guests a little better outside of the dev community. So my question for you this week: when you are alone and you have a successful moment, do you dance? And if so, what is the dance that you perform?
Okay.
I do the same dance if I'm alone or if I'm not. To be honest, it's
Mine's very boring, and yes, I do have a success dance. Mine is I go make a cup of tea.
Aww.
That's like a success ritual. You're so old and boring.
I have mini successes all the way through the day, and when I have that success moment, whether it is I've programmed something, or I've written a good test, or I've implemented a new procedure or I've had a good meeting or something, get up and make a brew.
For me, it's basically the Snoopy dance, the heads up and I'm doing a little shoulder wiggle and it's just like, yes. And you will literally hear me scream, yes. You'll also hear me scream zoomies, as we've had discussed as my words of the day.
Don't know what a zoomie is.
Okay. Even I know what zoomies are.
Zoomies, I'll have to share it at some point. Till Tepe says he just looks slightly less grumpy.
So yes, today's show is about setting team culture. Now, how many times have you started a job or been to an interview and that person has, and the interviewer has told you, we've got a brilliant culture at this company, or we've got a breakout room and there's a SNES in there. I'm showing my age now. There's a SNES in there, and there's we've got pool tables and we've got all this, that, and the other, and we've got a brilliant culture. What does that mean? Is that actually culture? And if so, how do we set it, and how do we set expectations with our employees? So, to start off with, how do we define that then? I'm going to let you start, Sam. Can you answer that question?
So it's really, really difficult. And I've worked in environments which have had terrible culture, like I'm sure lots of people have, and places that have really good culture as well. I personally think culture is the unwritten rules of the society. It's the things that you all sort of intrinsically assume that everyone else is adhering to. It's not the documentation that says this is how you perform a release or anything else. It's the unwritten rules about how you communicate with each other, how you can joke around with your friends at work or other departments. It's all the things that you don't write down. You just assume that people do.
But do you not need to have something written down or some processes in place in order to set that culture, that cultural understanding, that those unwritten rules?
I think that's where a lot of people end up sort of sliding into bad culture, because there's an interesting sort of theory going around that bad habits are contagious. So the sort of pseudoscience behind it is someone's rude to you. It takes you willpower and effort to basically bounce back and reset from that. And you only have a certain amount of willpower and resilience throughout the entire day. So as the day wears on, your ability to not reflect that behavior gets less and less and less and less. It's a bit like, the straw that breaks the camel's back. You just these little tiny things over and over and over again. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you've got someone in the office who thinks it's okay to tell really inappropriate jokes or not call out, discriminatory language when it happens, or even just, not return the floor to someone if you accidentally interrupted them. You can kind of end up sleepwalking to those kind of behaviors, but I think a lot of people find them really hard to define, and therefore they kind of don't want to. It feels like if you need to have an etiquette book to adhere to and go, this, you have violated 3.3.1 of our etiquette book, that's a really, I think a lot of people think that's a sign of a really, really bad thing.
So
Sod off.
What I meant by having things written down, I don't necessarily mean writing the culture down or the rules of engagement down or anything like that. What I mean is, do you not need something, some kind of not cultural, some kind of process put in place within a company, within your business, some kind of expectation put in place before you can create a culture, before the unwritten rules write themselves? Do you not need to set precedents as a business, maybe, or as a leader?
I don't. Ideally, I think you would. I think what ends up happening when you start a business is that you have like a few people together, and the relationships between them become the culture, and then another person gets added, and another person gets added, another person gets added. And those people are so busy wondering about how to make the business successful that you don't actually think about how people interact with each other until you're a certain critical mass, and then you've already got a culture anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that unless you have a really bad systemic cultural problem that requires, say, HR to get involved and actually like sort something out, it kind of comes down to individual leaders within the company to kind of make the culture up as you go along. And that's how you end up with people who just don't enforce the rules, either because they think that culture is okay and they're okay with it, and therefore, there isn't an outsider opinion to kind of say, hey, this isn't okay.
Or they're ignorant to it, and they don't notice that it's happening.
Yeah.
Some say that the culture begins with, or back in the day, I should say, back when I actually went for interviews for jobs with the purpose of being sort of a 9-to-5er. Through that, now I do things differently. Yay, go freelancing, go consulting. But back in the day, I was told by people, when you go looking at a job, there are 3 things you need to look at. The first thing is how people are dressed, because that can inflect and infer the type of culture you're in. If, the people who are the reboot monkeys of your company are in a suit and tie, there's a certain almost...
I think that's corporate policy over
that. But see,
culture.
that can influence culture. It can highly influence how people react to each other or how they're meant to engage. The second thing is literally how people are seated together. Is it an open floor plan? Do people have their own offices? Are they segregated behind those horrible cordoned off, cubicles of the 80s, as I call them in my brain, although they still exist. And then the third thing is how people react during break, which the people who were teaching me how to get jobs said, be there when they have a break. Do people go out for smoke breaks together even if they don't smoke? Do people get up and go for tea breaks even if, they're not in the same team? Like, how do these people interact with each other? Because it makes a huge difference. Because just because you have a culture that is accepting and, kind in, doesn't necessarily mean it's a very positive culture either. I have seen some really horrific things in my life. at least in my brain, the thing that comes out in the forefront, especially in the developer world, is almost this assumption that developers are allowed to work overtime without pay. In fact, they're expected to do this crunch project or to do this overtime on a project. And it's almost expected. And it's a cultural thing because maybe those first original team members were like, we're going to do anything to get this, out. We need the MVP out. We now need to fix the MVP. We now need to go back and do this. Like, we have to do everything we can. And it's developed this culture where everyone needs to work 24 hours a day or work when they're at home and not be able to spend time with their family. Or if they haven't done research outside of work, it's held against them because it's the culture that was set.
But that's up to the leaders. That's not up to the company. That's up to the leaders to identify that behaviour and stop that behaviour as quickly as possible.
I can think of one person.
Good culture.
Yeah, I can think of one person who, unfortunately, because they had that kind of mentality for themselves, they made a horrible manager and they absolutely destroyed everybody who worked under them. But the company loved them because they were that go-getter 24-hour person. And despite the fact that they lost 7, 8, 9 people because this person destroyed the members of their team with that attitude, they just wouldn't do anything about it. And he was the manager.
Well, that's the other thing, right? If you end up with, so it's an interesting thing that I've kind of noticed as I've gone from, being junior dev to being like normal dev, senior dev, team lead, all the rest of it. The higher you go up that chain, the less likely it is that anyone's going to tell you when you've done a bad job. And actually, one of the things that a leader or someone as a line manager can do that really will help is actually skip a level when you do one-to-ones. So yeah, do a one-to-one with your direct reports, but do them with your reports, because they'll tell you things about the manager that you'll never hear any other way. And then you can actually feed that back to your managers or your team leads or whoever, and actually get that sort of, hey, do you realize that when you said that thing, that actually really upset that person? Or actually, when you do this thing, it comes off as, you probably don't mean it to, but it comes off as like this. Maybe you could try and do it a bit differently next time. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It also then creates a kind of sense of you can talk to anyone about anything. It kind of breaks down that corporate hierarchy a bit, and everyone becomes a bit more approachable, a bit more personable. I
honestly believe like there's no such thing as a flat culture, like a flat hierarchy in a company. No. I'm actually working for somebody at the moment, working with a client at the moment who say they have a flat hierarchy, but they blatantly don't, and they've got lots of systemic problems within their company. And I'm actually, most of my time is now focused on getting the team working together, getting them communicating, making sure that people aren't stepping on each other's toes and making decisions that are omitting the people that should be involved in those decisions. I actually had someone break down and cry at me yesterday, in fact, and I never had that before. I don't know if that means that they trust me and I'm doing a good job in that I'm getting through to people, or that was just the straw that brought the camel's back in that instance. And I felt so bad for this person that I couldn't sleep last night. I was I'm trying to solve the problems, but sometimes you can't solve all the problems, and it's a very difficult place to be because of the culture that exists in that particular company. But my job is to help them get past that and see what the, not just systemic problems, but process problems as well. And that's why I kind of focused on the process at the beginning, because a lot of the time I'm finding at the moment that because there isn't a process involved there's nothing defined for anything. Everybody just does everything to try and solve the problems, and nobody really does anything defined, if you know what I mean. And it's creating a toxic environment that's very difficult for stakeholders to see. These people. What you just said was very interesting about speaking to people who report to the people that report to you. Yeah. Very interesting, because I'm speaking to everybody across the entire spectrum as a complete outsider. You could almost see me as a standing like CTO type thing in this position. And I'm speaking to everyone from the brand new hire that just came in, all the way through to the people who've been there for 10 years that are seniors, and then the stakeholders as well. And the stakeholders haven't got a clue, really, what's going on at the ground level. And they don't see that. They just see all this
The higher
management
you
chaos.
go, the higher you go, the more obfuscation is obviously going to happen, because the things that you're worried about are further removed.
Yeah.
You know, when you start out, you might be worried about, does that variable work? You know, the higher up you go, you might be concerned about, is that unit selling in like Japan? You know, there's a huge difference between those things.
And getting people to align their understanding is impossible a lot of the time. To get the people who are on the ground doing the work to understand what the business needs and what the value is in what they're doing for the business and for the final bottom line, i.e. for them to keep their jobs, is very, very difficult sometimes. And this all stems from the culture, really.
Yeah, and for some reason, my brain just keeps going back to the fact that all of us want to work in places that have brilliant culture, but to be perfectly honest, our own definitions of what makes a really good culture could be very different. You know, it's that, I hate using this term, but I'm going to do it. It's that Venn diagram. Where do they line up? You know, where does everything match? And that's a good way to try to start a culture. But I keep thinking about the times that I've had to work with people who made the culture horrible simply because of their apathy, and nothing anyone could do could make a difference. And they weren't doing anything that was breaking HR or, you know, breaking what their contract required them to do. It's just, they didn't care. And it really felt, for lack of a better term, like a humbug place to be. Because no, I don't want to be in an environment where people feel that they can just be like, yeah, so I wrote the thing, and then they walk away. Yeah, I've done this thing, and then they walk away. It's like, I'd like to actually kind of know the people I work with, even if it's just, do you like milk in your tea or not? That would be lovely to know about you.
I like to be around people who are passionate, who care. In fact, not necessarily passionate, who care about the job they're doing. If I am working, right, and I don't mean to be anywhere disparaging, but if I'm working with a cleaner, if they care about what they're doing and what they're cleaning and clean well, and they're passionate in any way, shape or form about that job, I've got a lot more respect for them than working with an architect who's brilliant at his job and hates it. You know, if that's, again, it's a massive cultural thing. I've worked with people who have got menial jobs that I mean, I wouldn't do myself because it'd bore me, but they love it. And they're passionate, and they've got love for this world, and I see that as a great culture. I see that as somebody, as a place that I want to go and work at, because everybody loves their job, you know. But you can work with the best minds in the world, and if they don't enjoy what they do because of the culture, it's just horrible to work in that kind of place.
Actually, that's an interesting question then, and so sorry to put you on the spot with this, Sam. But, you know, there is something to be said for working in a culture where people are like, okay, so we've got another sprint. All right, let's do this. And then people just put their heads down, do what needs to be done, even if it's the bare minimum. Versus the person's like, yeah, okay, so what tasks am I assigned? Okay, cool. And then they go away. How would you, in a managerial role, work with someone who has that kind of level of apathy that could impact a team's culture? Because like you said, and I'm going to throw this out into the gaming world, we're all RPG characters. Every time we spend willpower points, we can't refuel it. Not immediately. We have to wait till we're out of the scene.
So, I mean, the way that I would probably approach that is to actually probably try and get to know that person pretty well. I can't imagine that person enjoys coming to work. So why? What's going on? What's going on outside of work? Maybe it's that, you know, they've got a really tough home situation, and actually work is the place that is calm right now, and that they can just relax, because home is awful and just, you know, it's terrible. And by spending a little bit of time getting to know that person, you build up trust, you build up this horrible word that everyone misunderstands, which is empathy. It's an understanding of what the other person's going through. If I can show that I'm on their side, okay, you've got a horrible home life, but if I speak to HR, we might be able to arrange for you to be able to work from home a couple of extra days, or, you know, see if we can work out some extra benefits for you, or do you know that there's this other thing that we offer that you're not taking right now? There might be some things like that that can make their lives easier. I mean, the other thing I'd be trying to do is make it really clear what I expect from people. There's a lot of managers who kind of go, yeah, as long as you're doing your job, I kind of don't care. But that's a really good way to have very variable results. If you say to people, I will be happy as long as you're hitting these things, and it might be behaviors rather than numbers, then that's the kind of thing that we're going through. And yeah, you do have to be prepared to kind of go, okay, you're not meeting these things. That's a performance improvement plan. That's whatever else needs to come. But on the other hand, if they're meeting those things, is it such a bad thing? I think we can get into a bit of a culture thing of you have to be present at work all the time. But you know what? A lot of us in these places have family. We have small children. We have pets. We have a washing machine that breaks, and sometimes you don't bring your whole self to work, and you have to make space for the human element. And as long as you expect, you vocalize what's expected of people, as long as they're kind of isolated, you're always going to have some people who are seemingly quiet and seemingly don't contribute. But give them a chance to have ownership of something, say, you're now responsible for delivering this, and suddenly you find they light up. And I think sometimes people get overlooked because they are that humdrum kind of person. And there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of bring them along and make them part of building the solution. You give people agency, they're far more invested in making sure that the outcome is right thing for everyone. And worst case scenario, you might have to, move them on.
It does happen, and
it does happen.
To be fair, there are points in everyone's career where they don't see a value in staying in a company for whatever reason. And it's not just the culture that does that. It could be absolutely anything. It could be, as you said, home life, etc. There are also, on the flip side of that, giving people too much responsibility and not supporting them when you've given them that responsibility makes a huge difference. Just essentially dumping things on the desk and giving them free rein to do whatever they want, and them trying their hardest to do whatever they want, but having no tools, skills, experience, or knowledge of how to actually achieve the task is extremely difficult and and can bring, again, I know from personal experience with what I'm doing right now, that there are people that are like that have just no support. And that's the business's fault, in that they've not put leadership in place, as you said before, or management in place.
But then, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, there's a fine line you have to walk with something like, being the micro or macro type of manager. There is nothing worse, at least to me, to be in an environment where I have somebody who is literally micromanaging me. The type of personality I am is, I like my list and off I go. And I will get it. There's a reason I do consulting. There's a reason I do freelancing. And there's a reason why I do it under my terms, because I'm bringing my knowledge, my expertise, my skill set, my knowledge of who I am as a person in the world around me to the bear. It's why you hired me in the first place. When I have someone who is sitting there trying to nitpick, so have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done that? It's like, you gave me a deadline of X. Let me just do it. Whereas I know for someone else, having that type of manager who's going, right, have you done this thing, would make them blossom and bloom. Because for them, it's not just about having someone give them the confidence boost they need that they're on the right path, because a lot of being able to take charge is confidence. But it's also having someone acknowledge that they're doing something. I don't need someone to pat me on the back and say, you're doing a good job. When I have my checklist, I know if I'm doing a good job or not. That just, it's how I make my judgment calls myself. But there are going to be people who need a different type of management style. So walking that balance between, you want the responsibility, and that's why you're sort of, a little quiet, et cetera, is because all of a sudden you want to own a project. For someone else, it could be the most terrifying, anxiety-ridden thing you could have ever done to them. How do you work with that kind of balance?
I think one of the things that really helps is I have a very big interest in psychology. And actually, sort of for the last 6 months, I've been reading quite a lot about human behavioral biology. So it's all about, what goes on in the seconds to years before someone does something. And it's really, really interesting to see how much in common we have with some really microscopic animals, and yet how different we are to our closest, animal relatives. There's also a huge amount of pitfalls that we fall into in terms of thinking. And, if anyone's ever read Thinking Fast and Slow, it's a must-have read, in my opinion. But also, you have to be able to tailor your management style to different people. And having like a toolkit is really, really important. So one of the toolkits I particularly love is the Atlassian Playbook. That is available online. It's free, it's just there. But it has different ways of debugging, as it were, different problems with different teams. And the nice thing about it is that it really encourages people to speak their mind. Now, the other thing you have to be aware of is neurodiversity and how different people react to different kinds of messages. So I always would recommend that people, if you put a meeting in someone's diary, tell them what it's about so that they can prepare. When you're there, let people all have ways of bringing this stuff to the table. Don't be the person holding the pen that decides what's going to get written down. Let everyone write it down. It's kind of the reason why Post-it notes and Agile works so well, is that everyone can write and everyone can contribute. And then follow it up. Allow a period after the meetings happen for people to follow up with their thoughts, because especially if you come up with a point in the meeting, expecting everyone to have all their thoughts ready to spout out at that moment, it's just unreasonable. And yet how many of us feel like if we don't have the answer the moment that someone asks a question, we're not doing our jobs?
You know what? I'm sorry to interrupt, Sam. Yeah. This is so utterly relevant that everything that you're saying is what I'm trying to tell, and I think I'm doing quite a good job of telling the people I'm working with at the moment. I'm going to direct them to this podcast tomorrow privately, because it's not. I could tell them about it as a company wide, but there's certain people that I think could benefit from listening to this, because it's coming from somebody else. And it's not just somebody who's involved in this. And it's almost exactly right. And I'm not prompting you to say any of this either, which is wonderful.
See, this is the other thing, is I think a lot of companies get into this mindset of we are solving a unique problem. And actually, none of us are. The interesting thing is that every single person has, imposter syndrome. We all worry that no one's paying attention to us when, or, our flaws are like under a microscope for everyone to see. It's the bedrock of anxiety. I suffer from anxiety and depression a lot, but the reality of the situation is actually everyone's too busy thinking about themselves to worry about what you're doing. And the more we realize that none of us is it's very, very, very rare that any one of us in business is actually solving a novel problem, and that people have done a lot of work to actually solve these problems beforehand. We were joking before the show, that I learned most of my management techniques and styles through being a guild leader in Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 for like 9-10 years, because it's exactly the same skills.
The interesting thing about what I'm doing at the moment is that the company is solving a novel problem. That's actually one of their unique things. But all of the problems that they have, none of them are novel. They're all process driven. They're all development processes or management styles or lack of management or something that every company in the world suffers at some point, especially at the startup stage, if they have very little experience. And there's solutions to all of that out there. And at the moment, I am selling those solutions as not as ideal things, as these are things that we can put in place and we can work towards making them into a process that works for you as a company. They're never perfect. The Scrum and Agile manifestos are just a guide. They tell you how to get to the end result, or give you tools to get to the end result.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, if you try and apply Agile by the book, it will never work for you. No. You have to take the principles, throw it out the window, and decide what's going to work. And you find that every team is different, and the team will change over time as people join and leave, and as the problems you're solving as a team change and technology moves on, right?
Yep.
You'll find that the processes that worked like last year don't work anymore, and you need to keep tweaking them. And that's kind of why I love like retrospectives. That's why I love team health monitors. That's another one for the Atlassian playbook. It brings, so the retrospective to me brings a spotlight on the work, and the team health monitor is more about the people. And how they interact with different teams. Do they know why they're doing this? Is the communication good between different teams? It kind of highlights those sorts of things.
Well, that's a sprint review, isn't it? So you've got your review and your retrospective. In fact, isn't it? Sorry, the other way around. The review is to look at the product and what's been designed, and the retrospective is to look at the processes and the people and see if you can improve that.
Again, it depends on how you play it. So I'm not one who, I don't really like this whole sort of your sprint planning includes a retrospective of the last sprint, because I feel that especially in a 2-week sprint, that's too granular to actually really have done anything or notice a change since the last time you did it. Team health monitors probably every month. Once you're into the routine of them, they take maybe half an hour to do. It's not a huge amount of time out.
Yep.
Retrospectives usually allow an hour because the discussion is quite useful. But again, once you're into the rhythm of it, it can be a little bit shorter. I tend to focus the retrospectives on what did we feel about, it was good or bad in the last period, and team health monitors are more about how we're feeling right now in the moment.
Right.
Is this a good time? Is this a bad time? Do you know what needles you're trying to move for this particular piece of work? But yeah, it's like we just said about Agile. Every team does it differently, and as long as you've defined it somewhere, it's fine.
It's really interesting that I've tried to put the perfect, the by the book Scrum management thing in place. I've tried to. There's 4 different products, and I've tried to implement sprint planning for every single one. Every single time I've planned that 4-hour meeting for a 2-week period, it's within minutes it's been derailed because there are some fundamental problems that have not been unblocked before. We haven't got a developer, for God's sake. It's a key thing to a sprint planning meeting. It's that kind of thing. It's like trying to figure out how we're going to do story points and all the other stuff. We're not talking about Scrum though in this meeting, so let's get ourselves back on track.
We're not. I will refer you to a video later on about estimating, because honestly, it's
and we'll include that in the show notes as well. And yes, estimation is a pain in the butt. I want to pull back a little bit into the whole concept of team culture, and I think one of the more quiet and deadly parts of a team culture killer is the people who don't feel they have someone to approach if they do see a problem. And the problem could be anything from, I think we're building this particular feature wrong and it's going to have security issues because of X, Y, or Z. Or it could be, I think someone's doing too much work or not enough work. Or it could be about their own individual performance, skill set, or what have you. But they can find themselves in a position where they feel like they can't turn to someone, whether it's their direct report or the reporter's report or the reporter's report. I've seen some crazy things in my life. So I'm curious as to experience, thoughts, comments. I mean, I'm going to go out and cover the worst case scenario right now. If it is so bad that you can find absolutely no one to listen to you, you really need to find someplace else to work. I mean, it's on your shoulders. But if you do happen to find yourself in a place where you really enjoy working and you want to see the culture change and you're willing to take the initiative, like tips, points, hints, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I would say that if you do speak up and no one listens, that's also a good sign to get out. And some places are not in a position to actually listen at all. And they're stuck in their ways. And you can be rest assured that either it will take a monumental shift, something massive will happen, and they'll have to buck their ideas up, or they will go out of business. That's pretty much what will happen. I'm
so sharing this with these people. I swear to God, everything is just so relevant.
I mean, I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about diversity. My experience of working in technology is it's very male and white and straight and able-bodied. And as someone who doesn't tick well, it only ticks one of those boxes. You know, it's a you know, very, very different to come in. I still encounter people who go, "Oh, you're the manager," even, and it's like, "Oh, you know, you're the woman and you're in charge." What? And you know, it's really, really hard. But you know, on a corporate level, these things are not. When I say corporate, company level, let's not go corporate. It's not just about the engineering team. It's actually about everyone in the business, right? It's about celebrating who is in the door and who you would like to have in the door. And you may find that other areas are sort of completely opposite bias to what your particular environment is. I know, certainly speaking to various people, fashion, for example, fashion is very, very like female orientated. And if you are a straight man in there, you are given absolute hell. And that's stereotyping. I'm sure there are places that are not like that, but it's just a complete flip side of the problems that certainly I see in technology. And as much as I would like to hire more diverse candidates, you know, it's actually quite hard to get applications.
Yeah, and there's not many. I don't. Whenever I look at CVs, I see. I have never in my entire 20+ year career seen a CV for a female developer that isn't a female. That isn't a SQL report writer. That is the only area I've ever seen a CV.
Yeah. And so, and that it's different if you're getting people through the door and they're leaving, and it's to a different problem to if you aren't getting applications. So applications, I mean, I'm looking at people who are doing sort of blind hiring and sorting out sort of the code review thing. I can go on for hours about the technical test. I will not.
Someday.
Yeah.
We'll be back on another show for that.
Yeah. But my basic thing is that the technical test, either it's whiteboarding, which I've never programmed on a whiteboard outside of like a technical test, so why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Or it's like basically work for free at home, and I'm like, yeah, if I had a baby, I couldn't do this, so why are you making me do this? You know, so there's a whole thing to look at there. And also having a system that takes names off CVs. Unfortunately, everyone is biased. You have unconscious bias. You can do tests online that will tell you how you're unconsciously biased. Learn about your unconscious bias. The other thing is, like, you know, get the company to put on diversity events. Celebrate Pride. Celebrate, you know, bring a national dish to work kind of day. There are all these kinds of things that you can do that just kind of bring out the differences and yet the similarities in each other. And sometimes you have to overstate what is allowed to give people the permission to say, yeah, actually, I have a girlfriend. Is it all right if they come to the, you know, just kind of say like all partners welcome, gives people the permission to kind of know that this is okay to bring your same-sex partner to, you know, to the corporate event.
Sad that has to happen in my eyes.
Yeah.
I know we all do have biases, but I'm so with that. I just cannot stand any kind of prejudice, and I've actually caught it recently twice from older males in a corporate environment who, one in particular said, he's a bit old, isn't he, when we were looking at a particular CV, and another one said, oh, bearing in mind that I am half Hungarian, by the way, he said, oh, Hungarians are very hard to work with.
Yeah, exactly. And
situations like that literally frustrate the hell out of me, because there is a point, and especially as you were discussing with psychology, there is a point where you cannot get people to look differently past even their conscious biases.
No.
And it can be incredibly frustrating, because you will find I'll let you continue, because I know you've got some really, really good points.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me at all either, Chris, don't worry.
It doesn't make any sense to me either. But
especially if someone's got injured or in a wheelchair or something, like
exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing to kind of think about is have allies outside of your company. So it goes back to this: don't feel like you have to fight the fight alone. If you look on places like Meetup, you are likely to, if you're in any kind of sort of city or town, you are likely to find a technology group. If you're in London or any other big city, there will be a niche thing. I have Meetup ping me for like Internet of Things women's group in London, and I'm like, really, that's a thing? And you think enough people are going to come? But you know, it's London. People do. You know, it works.
Same thing here in Leeds.
Yeah. So you can find people outside the company who will support you and let you know what they've been able to achieve. And you know, the other thing you can just do is just, you know, so as a manager, what I don't want to do is I don't want someone to have to be battle hardened to be able to have to feel they have to say anything. If we've got something wrong, I would like them to be able to say something and have it acted on and have it believed, rather than having to have someone who join us who has been through the journey that, you know, I've been through in terms of working with some people that, you know, thought it was okay to make jokes about 16-year-old teenagers, legal age here in the UK, by the way. So, you know, in the office space, and just kind of having to, you know, deal with that as being part of the norm.
I make a point of pulling people up when they say something inappropriate. I say that is not on. I'm sorry, and I stop whatever's happening, and I make a point of making them feel awkward about it, because it's just not. I accidentally say things at times. None of us are perfect. But I know when I've made a mistake and I need to apologise or I need to say something. But some people don't, and they think it's normal. And my skin is crawling just talking about this. It's such a annoying world that we live in sometimes.
Yeah,
but just
people suck. Individuals are awesome. It's the basic takeaway from this, right?
Yeah.
But then it goes even all the way down to how you individually talk about other people. And it's not. I try. You know, I'm still not perfect at it, but certainly in the last 18 months, I have tried to make a point of saying folks or people rather than guys. And, you know, if we're talking about a user, I use they. I use gender neutral. We have to accept that we are going to have people who come into the workplace. It's like not having to wait for someone who is not represented in the company to come in before you make the change. If you have a trans person, if you have a non-binary person, think about what they would feel if they were in the room. What could they feel excluded by, and what can you do to kind of remove that before they're there? Because by the time that way, when they are there, you know, you don't have to think about it. It's second nature. It's part of.
Well, it goes back to what Chris said sort of towards the beginning. Is it's how you start the culture.
Yeah.
And then you continue with, you know, build it for who you want there. I want the people who can do the job. I don't care about anything else, but can you do that job?
But the people who can do the job are also people.
Yes. That horrible word. Darn you people for being people.
So, you know,
I've actually had a similar kind of thing recently that I struggle sometimes, because there is a group of people at current client that are female, and they are a group, and there's a very they versus them versus us situation in a particular scenario. Won't go into detail, but I quite often say the girls, and I every time I say it, I hate it, and I've said it in front of them a number of times, and every time I apologise and I say I don't know what other term to use, because you are a group of. It's just really difficult. So I don't know what to do in that situation, and I feel bad. I feel sexist for saying it, and I don't know if it's my own cultural prejudices or it's the world that makes me feel that way, or it is actually genuinely a problem that needs to be sorted.
Interestingly enough, considering, you know, if
I've even tried the ladies, but it doesn't work. It's still the same thing.
No, you
more
definitely don't want to. But see, that doesn't work either. But there are a couple of things to keep in mind with that kind of a situation, in my opinion. One, treat it like it's pure NDA, like you don't know. And at that point in time, you're going to be forced to use they, because you don't know if it's he, she, or whatever. That's a thing. Second, if you have a group of women or a group of men, and they are responsible for something, call them by their team name, or call them by whatever it is their job position actually happens to be. The managers, the developers, the QA, or what have you. If you want to remove them, or you can go one step further and actually name them.
That's what I've mostly been doing.
Yes, Jan, and Philippa. They're all responsible for this, and what they are saying And, you have, in our case, Sam and Josey here, what they're saying, there's ways to differentiate between it. I find it interesting because as a woman, I have been around the block when it comes to being in a male-dominated profession. I mean, we're in the IT world. It's a thing. And there are times where I get the whole company culture of joking about women in tech, and it kind of makes me snicker. But then there's a line that can be crossed, and it's that line where you have to stop it. If it is a momentary joke, I can accept it. But if it is something that I hear on a daily basis, I'm like, you have gone way too far at this point, because it's no longer a joke. It's a culture-setting trend, and that is not cool.
And we've been talking about sort of setting culture, like creating a culture, but very few of us will actually start get that situation. Most of us are taking an existing culture and trying to change it, and
or work within it.
And the only thing that you can kind of do really there, in my opinion, is challenge it. Is making someone feel uncomfortable for an inappropriate joke. Sorry, why is that funny? It's a bit, bit passive aggressive maybe, but it does make them have to do it.
A slightly less passive aggressive approach, but I do make them feel uncomfortable just by asking them a question and just not saying anything until they answer, and they are accountable for it.
Not everybody has that ability.
No,
we do live, and not everyone has a sort of confrontational or even an ability to be passive aggressive. It's not built into who they are, which is why I asked earlier, what do you recommend for the people who really don't know how to approach or how to address things or to be heard, And I think the best thing that you have said so far for people like that, and I say this because I have some others I know who I want to watch this as well, is to find those allies outside of work. Because there is always going to be multiple sides to a story. And just because someone has turned around and called the team or the company that I work in the girls, doesn't mean that they're intending to put me down for being female. That's not my first implication. Most people aren't out there to attack, but it can feel like one if, as Sam pointed out earlier, you've hit that camel from your willpower being butchered consistently throughout the day from tiny little individual events. So having someone to bounce the thought off of, or having someone to turn to who might go, let me challenge that thought for really, really quick. Did you have a good day or a bad day before this happened? Or something can be very, very, very beneficial.
Yeah. And the other thing is if you don't really want to challenge someone, the phrase, hey, you probably didn't mean this, but this, it seemed like when you said this, it made me feel like why. Because it kind of implies that you give the person the benefit of the doubt. You're kind of going, hey, you're a nice person. You probably didn't mean this. Text is fallible. Maybe it came up on Slack or something like that. You kind of say, hey, when you said that, it made me feel like maybe you were talking to customers like this, or maybe you were dismissing this person's idea. A better way of doing that would be something else. It's that whole, when you said X, it made me feel, here's the consequences, here's what I'd like you to do differently next time. And you can probably, yes, it does take a certain case of being brave to do that, and you'll find out very quickly if the environment you're in is one where that is okay and when that's not. But that is a really nice way of kind of saying, of kind of gently doing it, because you kind of say, it allows someone to say, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to come across like that, very, very easily. And a lot of the people who do that maliciously, it gives them an easy out of being called out, which immediately bursts the bubble on the argument that they were going to come back with.
And another thing to keep in mind is if someone has meant it maliciously, but then pretends to go, I'm so sorry, but they keep doing it, you now have had a chance to say, I've said this before and this is consistent. I'm starting to think that there is a problem here.
Yeah, exactly.
At which point in time, you have things that you can bring up to managers if you feel like it or what have you.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd point out is that we talked about the quiet people. Rockstar developers can be just as terrible. The kind of people who are not, who basically take all the juicy bits of work and then leave everyone else to do the drudgery. They're almost as bad as people who don't contribute at all, because they don't let anyone else challenge themselves, learn. and take ownership of something that's really exciting. And what ends up happening is basically they feel like, we're doing all the drudgery and this person over there gets to have all the exciting fun times. When's my turn? And that immediately then starts the I'm not valued, I'm not nurtured, I'm not mentored here. And then eventually that ends up in the I'm going to look for a new job.
It feeds the imposter syndrome as well.
Yeah.
I need to have an artwork commissioned of the imposter syndrome to have it come at us. Now, as much as I want us to keep going and keep continuing, we have definitely reached the end of our show. We're now at the RTFM moment where we have a moment to just rant and rave about something. It could be absolutely anything. It does not have to be developer related. Doesn't even have to be business related. Do you have an RTFM, Sam?
I do. Yeah. So I have this real bugbear and it keeps popping up at the moment. I don't know what it is. There's something in the water. So I take real issue with the phrase new and improved. Because if something is new, it can't be improved. And if it's improved, it's no longer new. The phrase should be newly improved.
Oh, God.
Oh, no. I think you've just done it to me.
Oh yeah, happy dance is coming. It drives me insane. And yeah, I keep seeing it around like new and improved version of this yogurt, and it's like, yeah, but I like the old one, and also it's either a completely different yogurt or it's the same one and you've just improved. Yeah, so yeah. Enjoy that. Once my boyfriend hears that I said this, he's gonna laugh because he loves pointing it out and driving me insane with it.
See, I wonder if it has something to do with marketing, because if you think about it, newly is an adverb, and people react differently to adverbs than they do to concrete statements. So I don't know, but now it's going to, oh, great. Thanks. Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Do you have one, Chris?
I'm just blowing your mind.
I'm just thinking about it. I'm thinking, yeah, actually, I've come around to the idea. I totally get that now. It's like did any of you watch Family Guy? You've seen?
Yes.
Not regularly.
Not in a long time though.
There was a moment where Stewie Griffin basically said that he hates people who use the word. Three phrases. I'm useless at this. Forgotten what they are, but there were three phrases and words that every time I hear people use them, he pops into my head and I can't remember the word. Yeah, have you broken me? As Tultepe says, you've broken me. And I'm still trying to think of a RTFM for me this week. And other than all of the things that we've said during this show, I am full of things that could frustrate me at the moment. But I see it as every day is a challenge, and every day I'm doing something brand new, and I have to think about things in a new way. The fact that I can't turn off from work for the first time in many, many years, I'm not that kind of person. I just switch off. As soon as I finish, get up off my desk, I'm done. That's it for the day. I'm thinking about new problems and new things, and none of them are annoying me. They're just all things that I need to
know what I think it is?
Solve.
Do you know what I think why you're so, like, I would use the word empowered by this. Charged up is another way if you want to look at it. I think it's because usually in the projects you work on, you're building a product or a platform or something like that. You're working with the human element, and that I think changes everything. And the human element, there's something intrinsic about us as pack animals, for lack of a better term. We like to congregate together. We like our echo chambers or whatever it is you want to be. You want to be around people. And I think that might be what it is, because you are fascinated by people. You are. So I'm guessing here, obviously.
You know what's happened to me over the last few years, especially if you watch the very first podcast that we had with D&I, and even the old ones that we used to do back with the MMO buff stuff.
Yep, all the data mine stuff, yeah.
I'm very technical. I know what I'm doing when it comes to the technical world, but I've always almost despised human beings to the point of...
We joke about that.
To the point of just being frustrated by everything that they do. At the moment, I don't see it that way. I am Sam. Sam has said almost everything that I'm thinking, and I'm trying to... It's a challenge for me to put into words how... I can't tell people what to do, but I want to teach them how to learn themselves, to be not necessarily better people, but deal with situations in a better way, because you'll never change other people necessarily.
No.
But you can teach. It's like that old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach it to drink. It's the same kind, if that's the right way to say it.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing that I desperately want. I've always loved offloading information. As soon as I got past that junior developer wanting to hoard everything and not really understanding collaboration and that, and now I'm at a point where I want other people to have all of my knowledge, and that's why I do this podcast, and I've improved because of that. And everything that we talk about, especially this episode, it's been so exciting. It's actually been really exciting speaking to you, Sam, about this. It's absolutely fascinating that other people are thinking the way I'm thinking, and I'm developing into that, you know. And yeah, people are not horrible or awful anymore. They are interesting to. I don't even know how to put it in words.
They can be horrible and nasty and disgusting, and what on earth are you doing? Don't get me wrong, they can be.
Oh,
but
no,
they
I know
also
that.
can be brilliant. It's one of the things that I've had a lot of people go, I hate Reddit. It's got awful people. Don't say no. It has the entire spectrum of humanity on that site.
Yes.
It's all of the amazing people and all of the disgusting, horrible people. It's a microcosm of humanity. And as someone who likes looking at people, it's amazing.
I love Reddit for that exact reason. I will read comments entirely just to see how things shift and evolved. And you'll turn around and you'll see someone who's just bought somebody a house because they lost everything in a fire. And then you'll turn around and you'll find someone who's confessing on /r confessions that they set a fire. You get everything there, you know? But yes, so my RTFM is actually kind of a general one. I am annoyed at the fact that we're at a point in society, and this is a people-based one, where people who work in support are shocked when someone is polite to them.
Yeah.
I had a recent issue with something, and I had to reach out to support. And I said, just out of curiosity, what's going on with this? I can't log in. I can't perform the actions needed. This is actually kind of critical. It's a financial-based thing. And the woman who I was speaking to, you could tell she sounded really afraid that like I was going to blow up or something. And we ended up having a very long drawn out conversation because there were a lot of things that we had to check and they were testing. And there was a big system change going on at the time. And, you know, by the time we were done, she was laughing and smiling. And I said, I really hope that I am not the only call you get like this today. And her response just made my jaw drop. She's like, it's okay. We're trained to handle the amount of frustration that people can bring to this particular situation. And I've had to put it to use a lot. And it's like, oh, come on. So it breaks my heart that we are at a point where support people are shocked when someone goes, hey, I've run into a problem. Just curious, do I need to do anything? Is something going on? Is like, can I get at least an ETA? Can you help me out here so I can make choices? And they're shocked when you're like, you are awesome. Thank you. You're a star. You've given me exactly what I needed. I may not have been able to get the full spectrum of what I wanted, but I understand where we're at right now because you've communicated it with me. Thank you. And it's like a shock to them that people are actually open and, you know, accepting of what they have to say. As someone who works in support, you know,
I have so much respect for anyone who does a customer facing role, even, you know, anyway through like waitress, barista, you know, cashier, shop assistant, all the way through to, you know, customer support, what have you. There are people out there who think it's okay to treat people awfully, who
see it every
are
day.
not in control of the problem. Okay,
that's the other thing. Yes.
Yeah. You know, it's the person you're speaking to has absolutely zero control over what's happening.
And it goes down to complete ignorance again on the part of the person who's delivering the abuse or whatever it is, whatever level of abuse it is.
But I'm going to throw that empathy word.
Yeah, I'm also going to throw out though that could be that whatever incident someone went through may have been the camel that broke their willpower back as well. It's almost like everything we've discussed has implications elsewhere. What? No. So
everyone deserves your respect unless they are ugly to you, in my opinion. If someone is ugly to me directly and there's no good reason for it, if just rude, then they don't get my respect. But otherwise, everyone gets
I can agree
a
with
good
that
few
with some
chances.
of the things that I've been through. Yeah.
The thing I keep thinking, I'm trying to remember, is there but for the grace of fate go I. if I had been that person in that situation, I may have reacted exactly the same way. And I'm just grateful that that hasn't happened to me.
So we all have our dress, and we're at the end of our show. Holy cow, that went by really fast, but at the same time, it just means we have to get Sam back, and I love it.
Aww.
Thank you to all of you amazing people in Twitch for joining in. Tultepe, you poor thing. I saw your comment about apathy and about the whole situation of people not listening to you in chat. Don't worry. We did catch that. We just didn't really have time to go into that. A massive hello to Quince and Sulaco and everyone else who showed up. And if you are new, thank you so much for joining us here at DNI Stream. Finally, thank you, Sam, for joining us.
It's quite all right. Can I do some pitch?
Well, I'm about to let you go forth and pitch. Okay. However, what I'm also going to state is I think probably the best compliment I could ever give somebody on this show. I hate working for people, but I would happily have you as a manager.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely.
Like
That's
if I wanted to do a 9-to-5 thing, I would hunt down you at whatever company you're at and be like, okay, let's do this.
I'm tempted to draft you into what I'm doing at the moment and help me and be my wingman, because it's honestly, it's a wing person. Sorry.
Thank you.
Because honestly, everything you're saying is exactly the problems I'm hitting at the moment, and I'm trying to deal with them in exactly the same way that you're saying we should deal with them. I'm not perfect, but it's nice to hear it. It really is nice to hear that. I already knew. I already knew other people had the same problems. It's just nice to hear it, and I think the people that I'm working with need to hear that as well from other people.
And I do have faith that it can improve over time. It just requires consistency.
It does, and the problem is a lot of the time people have been in this situation for a long time, and they
burned out, battle hardened, the whole kit and caboodle.
Or the system benefits them.
Yes, that's another one.
Anyway, feel free to pimp away.
Okay, so you actually can come work for me. Hey, how about that? So Real VNC have a number of different test and software development roles across the company. We also have other roles as well that we need fulfilled. So you can head to realvnc.com/careers. There is a speculative application for engineering as well. We're always looking for really talented engineers. So if you're in the Cambridge area of the UK or you want to move here, then feel free to come and apply. I will also do like two book recommendations. Number one, Adam Savage, his new book / autobiography, Every Tool's a Hammer, which is a great title for a book. It is fantastic for anyone who's considered a maker, and he considers a maker to be anyone who makes a thing, and that includes coding, baking, cosplay, absolutely anything. It's filled with gems from his time in Mythbusters, as you would expect, but also some really solid tips on how to get the best out of your workspace and environment and working with others. So that's tip number one. And if you are like me, you want to sort of crack the human brain, Robert Sapolsky has a great book called Behave as well. Both of them are available on Audible if that is your poison, but both of them are really, really good. So yeah, apparently my marketing team want me to go out and talk in Cambridge as well. So if you are in the Cambridge area, you might hear me speak at some point in the nearest future.
Stuff. I think you do a wonderful job at that, Sam. I love listening to people like yourself. It's inspiring. Let's say that.
Good.
It's easy to see that you truly believe in what you're saying, and that's just gorgeous. So,
I can't do anything other than be authentic, because people know when I don't believe what I'm saying.
Yep, very much so.
So
yes, you're easy to read.
I said it's lovely to see, and that's what I was saying earlier about the passion. It doesn't matter who I work with or who I'm in the company of. When I can see passion, it actually gets me excited. It gets me riled up about not necessarily their subject, but the subject, not the same subject, rather a subject of
it feeds you energy.
Yeah. I suppose, and it's lovely to see. Anyway, it's time for our pimpage as well. So you can visit our website www.dnistream.live. The links to all our social media channels, our Discord dev chat, our podcast discovery platforms, and everything else. And if you want to contact the show for any reason, you can use our contact form. If you want to be a guest, if you want to make any comments, or if you want to send Sam a thank you that she's helped you, or give you more inspiration to drive your processes or improve your team culture, then please do get involved, and we'll pass the information on to her.
Yes, you can also reach her on Twitter, which is actually that way over there. reach out to her there too. But yes, all that's left for us to say is a massive goodbye, and we hope to see you all next week live Thursday, 7 p.m. here at twitch.tv/DNI stream. Thanks for coming to Documentation Not Included. Bye-bye.
Bye.